The cleaning girl I'd hired called me, her voice barely a whisper. "Ma'am, there's a woman upstairs in your house." My blood ran cold. I was the only woman who lived there. Or so I thought. What I found in my attic that day would unravel 30 years of lies and reveal a secret so devastating, it would destroy everything I thought I knew about my life. "Oh, my dear. Aunt Vivvy here. Come sit close. What I'm about to tell you is a story that still gives me chills. It's about secrets hidden in plain sight. About the people we trust most becoming strangers. And about a woman who lived as a ghost in her own sister's house for 3 decades. This is a story about truth, betrayal, and the price we pay for silence. So settle in, my dear. This one is long and it's dark, but I promise you, it's worth every minute. Let me tell you about the day Simone Whitlock's entire world came crashing down. Simone Whitlock was 65 years old when this story begins, living in a beautiful old house in Savannah, Georgia. You know the kind. One of those historic homes with brick facades and creaking wooden floors, the kind tourists stop to photograph. The house had been in her husband Jerome's family for generations, passed down through the years like an heirloom. Simone had just retired after 40 years of working as a school administrator. No more rushed mornings, no more meetings, no more deadlines. Just quiet days in that big old house, tending her garden, reading books, living the peaceful life she'd worked so hard to earn. Her husband Jerome was a published novelist. Moderately successful enough to keep them comfortable. He'd write in his study for hours, emerging only for meals, his mind always somewhere else, lost in whatever story he was crafting. They'd been married for 32 years. A good marriage, Simone thought. Quiet. Predictable. Safe. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Simone woke up with big plans to deep clean the house. Spring cleaning even though it was October. You know how it is sometimes, you just get that urge to scrub everything to make your space spotless. She'd rolled up her sleeves, grabbed her cleaning supplies and was standing in front of the living room window, ready to tackle those dusty panes when her phone rang. It was Yvette, her childhood friend. They'd grown up together, running through Georgia fields, sharing secrets, dreaming about their futures. "Simone." Yvette's voice was bright with excitement. "I'm only in Savannah for 1 day. Please tell me you can meet me for coffee." Simone looked around at her house, at all the cleaning she'd planned to do. But it had been years since she'd seen Yvette. How could she say no? "Of course," she said. "But let me find someone to clean while I'm gone. I can't leave the house like this." She thought immediately of Brianna Parrish, a sweet 20-something girl who lived down the street. Brianna was working her way through college, always grateful for extra work. Simone called her and Brianna accepted immediately. "I'll leave you a key under the mat," Simone said. "Just lock up when you're done, sweetheart." Simple. Straightforward. Nothing to worry about. Simone met Yvette at the Magnolia Tree Cafe, one of those charming southern spots with live oak trees and sweet tea that tastes like childhood. They talked for hours. About Yvette's grown children. About Simone's retirement. About Jerome's latest book. About getting older and wondering where all the time had gone. It was one of those perfect afternoons where you forget about everything else and just exist in the moment. And then Simone's phone rang. Brianna's name lit up the screen. Simone smiled, thinking the girl was calling to say she'd finished early. But when she answered, what she heard made her blood turn to ice. "Miss Simone." Brianna's voice was barely a whisper, trembling with fear. "Is there anyone else in the house?" Simone's heart stopped. "No." "Why? What's wrong?" "There's..." Brianna's breath hitched. "There's a woman upstairs." "What do you mean, a woman?" "I was cleaning the stairs," Brianna whispered, her voice shaking so badly Simone could barely understand her. "And I saw her. She was wearing a long white dress. Her hair was all messy, hanging down. She walked down the hallway and disappeared into the last room." Simone felt the world tilt. "Get out," she said, her voice sharp. "Right now, Brianna. Get out of the house and wait outside." She stood up so fast her chair scraped across the cafe floor. Yvette looked at her, alarmed. "What's wrong?" "Someone's in my house," Simone managed to say. "I have to go." She drove home with her hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel, her mind racing. How could someone be in her house? They always locked everything. Always. She called 911 from the car, her voice shaking as she explained that there was an intruder, that her cleaning girl had seen someone. When she arrived, a police cruiser was already there. Brianna was sitting on the front steps, pale as a ghost, her whole body trembling. Simone rushed to her, wrapped her in a hug. "Are you okay? Did you see anything else?" Brianna just shook her head, tears streaming down her face. 2 officers came out of the house. They'd searched everywhere. Every room. Every closet. Under beds. In the basement. The backyard shed. Nothing. No one. No signs of forced entry. All windows and doors locked tight. "Ma'am," the older officer said gently, "there's nobody in your house. Everything's secure." Simone felt relief wash over her. But it was mixed with confusion. "I saw her," Brianna insisted, her voice breaking. "I swear I saw her. She didn't look real. She was like a shadow." Voice becomes contemplative. That's when Jerome pulled up in his car. He got out, looking confused at the police presence, at Simone's distressed face, at Brianna crying on the steps. Simone explained quickly, watching his reaction. And Jerome, he smiled. Not a concerned smile. Not a worried smile. A dismissive one. "Brianna," he said gently, almost condescendingly, "you must have been tired. This house is old. It plays tricks with light and shadow. You probably just saw sunlight through a window." Brianna looked down, not arguing. But Simone saw something in the girl's eyes. Certainty. She'd seen something. Simone was sure of it. Still, with the police finding nothing, with Jerome being so calm and logical, what else could Simone do? She paid Brianna extra, apologized for the scare, and sent her home. But that night, lying in bed, Simone couldn't sleep. A woman in a white dress. Messy hair. Disappearing into a room. Sounded like a ghost story. But Brianna wasn't the type to make things up. And deep down, in a place Simone didn't want to examine too closely, she felt it. Something was wrong in her house. Something had been wrong for a very long time. 3 months passed. Simone officially retired, and suddenly that big old house became her entire world. No more leaving at 7 in the morning. No more coming home exhausted at 6. She was there all day, every day in that house. And that's when she started to notice things. At first it was just sounds. Late at night, when Jerome was already asleep and the house was quiet, Simone would lie awake, staring at the ceiling. And she'd hear it. Creaking from above. The attic. Not the natural settling sounds old houses make. These were different. Deliberate. Like footsteps. Like someone walking back and forth. Sometimes she'd hear what sounded like a chair scraping across the floor. Sometimes a soft thud, like something being set down. Once she could have sworn she heard pages turning. "Jerome," she'd say in the morning over breakfast, "I keep hearing noises from the attic." He'd barely look up from his newspaper. "It's just rats, honey. Old house. I'll get some traps." And he did. Big metal traps that he set at the bottom of the attic ladder. And you know what? The sound stopped. Completely. Simone felt relieved. Just rats. Jerome was right. Except then other things started happening. One day, Simone bought a package of spicy sausage from the market. Her favorite. Jerome hated spicy food. Wouldn't touch it, would complain if she even cooked with too much pepper. She wrapped it carefully and put it in the refrigerator. The next morning, a large piece was missing. "Jerome," she asked cautiously, "did you eat some of the sausage?" He looked up from his book. "Yeah, I felt like trying something different. It was pretty good actually." Simone just stared at him. Jerome, who wouldn't eat spicy food, who complained about seasoning, had suddenly decided to eat her spicy sausage? She didn't say anything. But doubt began to creep in like cold water. A few days later, the entire sausage was gone. He checked the trash. Nothing. She asked Jerome. He said he'd finished it. But something about his answer didn't sit right. Then came the bathroom incident. Simone and Jerome had driven to Charleston for the day to visit friends. They'd left early morning, spent the whole day out, and didn't return until nearly midnight. Simone went upstairs to wash her face, tired from the long day. When she stepped into the second-floor bathroom, her feet hit water. The floor was soaked. Completely wet, like someone had just taken a shower. Water droplets still clung to the shower walls. The mirror was fogged. "Jerome," she called, her voice sharp with alarm. "Come here." He came and looked around. "Must be a leak," he said. "Or rain came in through the ventilation." "It hasn't rained," Simone said, looking out the window at the dry street below. "And this isn't leak water. This is shower water." Someone took a bath in here. Simone. Jerome's voice had an edge to it now. We've been gone all day. No one's been here. It's probably just condensation from the pipes or something. I'll call a plumber tomorrow. He never called a plumber. And the next day the bathroom was bone dry. As if nothing had happened. Simone stood in that bathroom, running her hand along the dry floor, and felt like she was losing her mind. The sounds. The missing food. The wet bathroom. All of it could be explained away. Rats. Forgetfulness. Pipes. But when you added it all together, it formed a picture. A picture of someone else in the house. Someone Jerome seemed determined to deny existed. A week later, Simone decided to clean Jerome's study. It was his private space, cluttered with books and papers. She rarely went in there, respecting his need for creative chaos. But she'd been thinking about donating some of their old books to the library. They had hundreds they'd never read again. She started sorting through the piles on his desk, and as she lifted a heavy stack of manuscripts, her hand slipped. Papers scattered everywhere. And as they fell, something clicked. A small wooden drawer in the desk, one that had been stuck closed for years, suddenly sprang open. Simone knelt down, gathering the papers, and glanced into the drawer. Inside was a small notebook. Leather-bound. Old. Worn at the edges. It didn't look like Jerome's. He was fastidious about his things. Everything modern, everything neat. This notebook looked like it was from another era. Simone picked it up, her hands trembling for reasons she didn't understand. She opened it. Inside were pages and pages of handwritten notes. Story ideas. Character descriptions. Plot outlines. The handwriting was elegant. Flowing. Distinctly feminine. Simone flipped through page after page. A story about a small mountain town where a woman waits for someone who'll never return. A plot about a buried secret that destroys a family. A character sketch of a man who builds his life on lies. Each idea was detailed. Developed. Beautiful. And familiar. So familiar. These weren't just random story ideas. These were the plots of Jerome's novels. The ones that had made him famous. The ones that had earned him awards and money and respect. But they weren't in Jerome's handwriting. Simone's hands shook as she examined the notebook more closely. Jerome hated writing by hand. She'd watched him refuse to write grocery lists by hand, preferring to type them on his phone. Everything he did was digital. Always had been. So whose notebook was this? She wanted to confront him immediately. To demand an explanation. But something stopped her. Some instinct. Some voice that said, "Don't. Not yet. You need to know more first." So she carefully put the notebook back in the drawer, pushed it closed, and walked out of the study. But she couldn't stop thinking about it. That night she lay in bed pretending to read, watching Jerome out of the corner of her eye. Around 10 o'clock he closed his own book and stretched. "I need to work on the manuscript a bit," he said. "Editor's breathing down my neck. You go to sleep, honey." It was his new routine. Every night he'd wait until she was in bed, then disappear into his study. Or so she thought. That night, Simone couldn't sleep. Around 1 in the morning she reached out to touch Jerome's side of the bed. He pulled. Like he'd never been there. She got up, pulling on her robe, and went to check the study. The computer was off. The chair was pushed in. No sign he'd been working. "Jerome," she called softly. No answer. He checked the kitchen. The living room. The basement. Nothing. Her heart started racing. Where was he? She stood at the bottom of the stairs, looking up into the darkness of the second floor, and that's when she heard it. A soft footstep. Above her. She looked up just in time to see Jerome descending the stairs, carefully, quietly, barefoot. In his hands he carried an empty plate. Clean. As if it had been washed. When he saw her standing there, his eyes went wide. The plate slipped from his hands and shattered on the stone floor. The sound was like an explosion in the silence. "What were you doing?" Simone asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jerome bent down, started picking up the pieces. Not looking at her. "I was working," he said. "Got hungry. Went upstairs for some quiet." "Upstairs where?" "The study is on this floor. The attic. It's quieter. I can concentrate better." He still wasn't looking at her. "Why do you need to be in the attic to write?" Simone asked. "Why not your study?" "The publisher's pressuring me. I needed space." His answers were too smooth. Too practiced. Simone knelt down to help him pick up the pieces, and when their fingers touched on the cold floor she felt nothing. No warmth. No connection. Just cold. The next morning, Jerome announced he was leaving for a few days. "I need to go to Atlanta," he said, packing a small bag. "Change of scenery. Get some inspiration." It was sudden. Unexpected. Jerome never left without planning in advance. "Why so suddenly?" Simone asked. He wouldn't meet her eyes. "The idea just came to me. Sometimes inspiration strikes and you have to follow it." Then he stopped at the door and turned back to her. His hands gripped her shoulders. Too tight. "Simone," he said, his voice low and serious. "While I'm gone, don't let anyone in. Do you hear me? Especially not anyone from the publishing house. If Mr. Sterling comes looking for me, tell him I'm traveling and you don't know when I'll be back." Something in his tone sent chills down her spine. This wasn't a request. It was an order. A warning. "Why?" she managed to ask. "Just trust me. Please." And then he was gone. Jerome had been gone less than 3 hours when the doorbell rang. Simone looked through the peephole and saw Mr. Sterling, Jerome's editor, standing there with a young assistant. Both looked impatient. Simone thought about Jerome's warning. But she couldn't just hide. Not answer her own door. She opened it, forcing a smile. "Mrs. Whitlock," Mr. Sterling said, not waiting to be invited in. He walked right past her into the living room. "I know Jerome's here. Stop covering for him. We need that manuscript. The deadline was 2 weeks ago." "I'm sorry, Mr. Sterling," Simone said, keeping her voice steady. "But Jerome left this morning. He went to find inspiration. I don't know when he'll be back." Mr. Sterling gave her a look that was somewhere between pity and anger. "Don't lie for him anymore," he said. "Your neighbor, Mr. Hamilton, told me he sees the attic light on until very late every night. If Jerome's working that hard, where's the manuscript?" Simone felt the world tilt. The attic light. They never went to the attic. It was full of old boxes and dust. Why would there be a light on? She started but couldn't finish. The young assistant, a kind-looking woman, spoke gently. "Mrs. Whitlock, we just want to help. If Jerome's struggling with writer's block, we can work with him. But he needs to communicate with us." Simone somehow got them out of the house, made promises she had no intention of keeping, and closed the door. Then she leaned against it, her heart pounding. The attic light. The sounds. The missing food. The wet bathroom. The notebook. Jerome's midnight trips upstairs with empty plates. Every single piece suddenly fit together, forming a picture she'd been trying not to see. Someone was living in her attic. Someone had been there all along. And Jerome knew. Simone didn't feel fear anymore. She felt something colder. Something stronger. Determination. She went to the backyard shed and found the old folding ladder they hadn't used in years. She dragged it inside, her arms shaking not from the weight but from what she was about to do. She positioned it under the attic hatch. The latch was rusty, stuck. She had to use all her strength to force it open. Finally, it gave way with a sharp click. A rush of stale air came down, bringing with it the smell of old paper and confinement. Simone turned on her phone's flashlight and climbed up. Music becomes very quiet, tense. The attic was larger than she remembered. Filled with boxes and old furniture covered in dusty sheets. She swept her flashlight across the space. And there, in the far corner, she saw it. A small area that looked lived in. A wooden table. A chair. An oil lamp, still faintly glowing. And sitting at that table with her back to Simone was a woman. Thin. Long white hair hanging down her back like a forgotten waterfall. Wearing a yellowed white dress. The woman was writing, her hand moving across paper, the sound of pencils scratching the only noise in the heavy silence. "Who?" Simone's voice came out as barely a whisper. "Who's there?" The pencil stopped. The woman turned her head slowly. And in the dim lamplight, Simone saw her face. It was impossible. It couldn't be. But it was. "Alana." Simone whispered, her legs giving out beneath her. Alana. Her sister. Her sister who had disappeared 30 years ago. Her sister who everyone thought had run away. Was sitting in Simone's attic. Living like a ghost in her own sister's house. And suddenly everything made terrible, perfect sense. Simone couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't process what her eyes were seeing. Lana. Her baby sister. Alive. Looking at her with eyes that were sunken and tired, but unmistakably hers. Simone, Alana whispered, her voice rusty from disuse. Like she'd forgotten how to speak. Sister. Around her was evidence of a hidden life. Stacks of handwritten manuscripts. Empty cans. Water bottles. A dirty blanket on a thin mattress. A bucket in the corner for. Simone didn't want to think about what. This wasn't a guest. This was a prisoner. Simone stumbled forward, tears already streaming down her face. How? She managed. How are you here? We thought. Everyone thought you'd run away. You disappeared. We searched. We mourned you. Alana tried to stand but her legs were weak. Simone caught her, felt every fragile bone beneath the papery skin. Come downstairs, Simone said through her tears. Come down right now. She helped Alana down the ladder, step by careful step. Her sister moved like someone who'd forgotten how to walk freely, each movement hesitant, uncertain. When they reached the living room and the light hit Alana's face fully, Simone had to bite back a sob. This wasn't the vibrant 25-year-old who'd disappeared 3 decades ago. This was a woman who'd aged in the dark. Who'd lived as a shadow. Simone sat her sister down in the most comfortable chair, rushed to get water, held the glass to Alana's lips because her hands shook too much to hold it herself. Tell me, Simone said, kneeling in front of her. Tell me everything. And Alana did. Her voice was broken, halting, but she told the story. 30 years ago, Alana had been a young writer. Talented. Ambitious. Full of dreams. She'd been working with an editor at a publishing house. A man named Darren Albright. One night, Darren invited her to his apartment to discuss her manuscript. It was a normal request. Professional. Or so she thought. But when she arrived, Darren was drunk. His eyes were wrong. His intentions were clear. He tried to force himself on her. Alana fought back. In the struggle, she grabbed the only thing within reach, a heavy marble bookend, and hit him. He just wanted him to stop. Just stop. But the blow was too hard. Darren fell, hit his head on the coffee table and didn't move. Alana stood there, frozen, watching the blood pool beneath his head. She didn't mean to kill him. He was just trying to protect herself. That's when Jerome walked in. He said he'd been coming to invite her to dinner at our house. But when he saw what had happened, he didn't panic. Didn't call the police. Instead, he saw an opportunity. You'll go to prison, he told Alana calmly. Your life will be over. But I can help you. For Simone's sake. I'll protect you. Alana, terrified and confused, believed him. That night, Jerome drove Darren's body out to the woods near the Ogeechee River. Dug a grave where no one would find it. Buried the secret. Then he brought Alana to this house, to Simone and Jerome's house, while Simone was asleep. He took her to the attic. Just until things calmed down, he said. Just temporarily. But temporary became permanent. Jerome spread a rumor that Alana and Darren were having an affair. That they'd run away together. When both disappeared, everyone believed it. The police investigated but found nothing. The case went cold. And Alana became a ghost. The first few years, Alana said, her voice breaking, were hell. I thought I'd go insane from the loneliness. From the guilt. From the fear. So I started writing. To keep my mind from breaking. I wrote stories about worlds where I could be free. Where I wasn't trapped. She looked at Simone with eyes full of tears. One day Jerome found my writings. I thought he'd encourage me. Tell me they were good. But instead his eyes lit up. Like he'd found treasure. Write for me, he said. I'll be your voice to the world. You give me the stories and I'll make them into books. Simone covered her mouth, a sob escaping. All of Jerome's success. His acclaimed novels. His reputation. Built on her sister's talent. Her sister's imprisonment. I tried to refuse, Alana continued. Tried to say I'd turn myself in. But he threatened me. Said if I did, you would be the one to suffer. That you couldn't handle knowing your sister was a murderer and your husband was an accomplice. He said you'd lose everything. Your reputation. Your life. Your sanity. He used your love for me and my love for you to keep me silent. Simone knelt there, her whole world crumbling around her. Jerome. Her husband. The man she'd trusted. The man she'd loved. Had kept her sister prisoner for 30 years. had stolen Alana's talent, her freedom, her life. And had done it all while sleeping next to Simone every night, pretending to be a devoted husband. "I'm sorry," Alana whispered. "I'm so sorry, Simone. I should have been braver. I should have." "No," Simone interrupted, taking her sister's hands. "No. You were terrified. You were alone. You were manipulated. This isn't your fault." She pulled Alana close, felt her sister's body shake with sobs. "We're going to fix this," Simone said. "Right now. Today. We're going to the police. We're going to tell them everything." "But I'll go to prison," Alana said. "For what I did to Darren." "Maybe," Simone admitted. "But maybe not. It was self-defense. And 30 years locked in an attic is already more than any prison sentence." She helped Alana stand. "Either way, this ends now. No more living as a ghost. No more secrets. No more lies." The next morning, Simone dressed Alana in clean clothes. They were too big, Alana was so thin, but at least they were fresh. They hadn't slept. Simone had spent the night telling Alana about the world she'd missed. Cell phones. The internet. How much had changed. Alana listened like a child hearing fairy tales, unable to fully imagine a world so different from the one frozen in her memory. At the police station, they asked to speak to the head of detectives. When Simone mentioned the Alana Whitlock case from 30 years ago, everything changed. Officers moved with urgency. They were ushered into an interrogation room. And Alana told her story. Every word. Every detail. The attack. The accidental death. Jerome's manipulation. 30 years in an attic. The officers listened with expressions of horror and disbelief. Within hours, everything was in motion. A forensic team was sent to Simone's house to document the attic. The manuscripts. The makeshift living space. Evidence of prolonged imprisonment. Another team, following Alana's precise directions, went to the woods near the Ogeechee River. They found human remains buried exactly where she said they'd be. DNA testing would confirm they belonged to Darren Albright. An arrest warrant was issued for Jerome Whitlock. He was apprehended at his hotel in Atlanta. Didn't resist. Just lowered his head as they put the handcuffs on. Like he'd always known this day would come. Simone hired the best lawyer she could find for Alana. The lawyer argued self-defense. Argued that Alana had already served 30 years in an illegal prison. Argued that she was a victim, not a criminal. The case became national news. The Ghost Writer of Savannah, they called it. People were horrified by Alana's story. Moved by her resilience. Outraged by Jerome's manipulation. But despite the lawyer's best efforts, despite public sympathy, Alana was facing charges. Manslaughter at minimum. Possibly more. And then 3 days before her preliminary hearing, Simone got a phone call. A cold, formal voice. "Mrs. Whitlock, I regret to inform you that Alana Whitlock took her own life at the detention center last night." The phone fell from Simone's hands. Alana. Her sister. The one she just found. The one she thought she could save. Gone. An officer brought Simone a letter Alana had left. Simone opened it with trembling hands. "Dear Simone," it read in Alana's familiar handwriting. "When you read this, I'll finally be free. For 30 years I wrote to survive. To keep from disappearing. But I could never write under my own name. I lived as a ghost. Now it's time for that ghost to rest. I don't regret telling the truth. It was the only right thing I did. Don't be sad. Think of it as the end of my story. The final chapter. There's one more manuscript in the attic. In a wooden box under the table. It's my story. My real story. If you can, please publish it under my name. Not Jerome's. Mine. Alana Whitlock." Simone held that letter to her chest and cried until she had nothing left. Jerome's trial became a spectacle. He was charged with unlawful imprisonment, obstruction of justice, accessory after the fact to manslaughter, and intellectual property theft. The evidence was overwhelming. Alana's testimony before her death. The manuscripts in the attic. Darren's body. All of it pointed to one truth. Jerome Whitlock had built his entire life on lies. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Simone didn't attend the trial. She couldn't look at him. Couldn't face the man who'd slept beside her for 30 years while keeping her sister prisoner. Instead, she went back to the attic. She found the wooden box Alana had mentioned. Inside was a manuscript. An autobiography. Alana's life story written in her own words. Simone spent weeks reading it. Every page was a knife to the heart. Alana wrote about their childhood. Running through Georgia fields. Their dreams of the future. She wrote about the night that changed everything. There. The 30 years of darkness. The stories she'd created to keep herself sane. But she also wrote about love. About resilience. About refusing to let her soul break even when everything else did. It was beautiful. Heartbreaking. True. Simone knew what she had to do. She contacted the same publishing house that had worked with Jerome. At first they hesitated. The scandal had tarnished their reputation. But when they read Alana's manuscript, they called Simone immediately. "This is extraordinary," the editor said, his voice thick with emotion. "We'll publish it. And we'll do it right. With Alana's name. With the truth." The book was published as The Ghost of Savannah, a writer's story by Alana Whitlock. On the dedication page, Simone wrote only one sentence. "No one should be imprisoned in the dark, especially those who love freedom." The book became a phenomenon. Readers across America, then the world, were moved by Alana's story. By her talent. By her strength. By the tragedy of a life stolen. All of Jerome's previous novels were re-released under Alana's name. The rightful author. The true voice behind every word. The royalties went to organizations supporting domestic violence survivors and prisoners' rights. Alana, though gone, finally became what she'd always wanted to be, a recognized, celebrated writer. Simone reads the reviews sometimes. The letters from readers saying how Alana's story changed them. Inspired them. Made them braver. And she thinks, "You did it, sister. You got your voice back." The house in Savannah stands empty now. Simone couldn't live there anymore. Too many memories. Too many ghosts, both literal and figurative. She sold it and moved to a small cottage by the coast. Something bright and open with windows everywhere and no attic. Sometimes she still wakes up in the middle of the night, her heart racing, thinking she hears footsteps above her. But then she remembers. There is no above. Just sky. Alana is free. The truth is out. And Simone. Simone is learning to live with the weight of everything she didn't know. She thinks about all the signs she missed. The sounds in the attic. The missing food. The wet bathroom. The notebook. How many times had Alana been so close? How many times had she tried to leave a trace, to signal somehow that she was there? And Simone had explained it all away. Believed Jerome's lies because it was easier than facing the truth. That's what secrets do, my dear. They hide in plain sight. We see them but we don't want to see them. So we look away. We tell ourselves stories that make sense. That keep our worlds intact. Until one day we can't look away anymore. So my dear, that's Simone and Alana's story. A story about secrets that span decades. About trust betrayed in the worst possible way. About a woman who lived as a ghost in her own sister's house while that sister slept peacefully below, never knowing. But it's also a story about truth. About how it always finds a way out no matter how deeply buried. About courage. Alana's courage to finally speak, and Simone's courage to listen, even when the truth destroyed everything she thought she knew. I want you to think about something. How many of us are living with secrets we don't even know exist? How many times do we explain away the signs because facing them would be too painful? Simone trusted Jerome. Loved him. Built a life with him. And that trust kept her from seeing what was right in front of her. That's not her fault. That's how manipulation works. It hides in love. In familiarity. In the daily routines that make us feel safe. But this story teaches us something important. Trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, it probably is. When the pieces don't quite fit, stop trying to force them into place. Ask questions. Demand answers. Don't let anyone tell you you're crazy or paranoid or overreacting. Brianna, the cleaning girl, saw a woman in a white dress and everyone dismissed her. But she was right. She saw the truth that no one else wanted to see. Your gut knows. Listen to it. And if you're the person living in the attic, metaphorically speaking, if you're hiding, if you're keeping secrets that are destroying you, if you're living as a ghost in your own life, it's not too late to speak up. Yes, the truth might hurt. Might change everything. Might cost you. But silence costs more. Alana lived 30 years in darkness, and when she finally spoke the truth, she found freedom. Even if that freedom came at the highest price. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Your truth matters. Don't let anyone convince you to stay silent. This was Aunt Vivvy. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for sitting with me through this long, painful, important story. If it touched you, if it made you think about your own life and the truths you might be avoiding, then it served its purpose. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. Stories that challenge us, that make us uncomfortable, that remind us that the truth, however painful, is always better than a beautiful lie. Until next time, my dear, trust your instincts, ask the hard questions, and remember, secrets buried in darkness always find their way to the light. The only question is, how much damage do they do before they get there? Take care of yourself. Be brave enough to face the truth, whatever it is. And know that you're never alone in your struggles. We're all just trying to find our way. Vivvy.